I think you're right in terms of what strikes me as interesting about this was that they are making a decision that has not been made yet, too, with regards to the culpability of the former president with regard to January 6th. Let's just isolate that for a second. Could the court be making that kind of decision when a decision has not yet been made?
Well, but it would be easy for Jack Smith just to get him indicted for
Right.
in the District of Columbia, have a speedy trial, and in the District of Columbia, they would convict a ham sandwich if his name was Trump.
Mm-hmm.
So that's not much of a safeguard requiring a conviction. Remember that Eugene V. Debs ran for president and got 3 million votes while he was serving a prison term for something like insurrection. I mean,
Right.
he wanted to advocate the overthrow of the government by force or violence. And in America, we don't take the decision away from the people by having the judges make electoral decisions. Let the people decide. They're not going to vote for a person they believe to be an insurrectionist.
Let me ask a little bit about the Supreme Court's role right now in the election, because you mentioned we've got Jack Smith, we've got this. How how do you feel about the Supreme Court having such a pivotal role during what, in essence, is something that should be in the hands of the voters?
It's a terrible thing, and it has been proved terrible. The worst decision the Supreme Court made in the last quarter of a century may have been, I don't know, maybe overruling Gore versus Wade, but certainly one of the worst was Bush versus Gore, in which 5 Republican justices outvoted 4 Democratic justices and turned the election over to the man who got fewer votes in Florida than the other side. I have to admit, I had a small role. I represented the voters of Palm Beach County on the side
Right.
of Gore, not unbiased on this, but I don't think it was the Supreme Court's finest hour. And the court should not be intruding into elections. Now, they may have to, if a lower court, the Colorado Supreme Court, intruded, they may have to undo that. I think when I spoke to Justice Scalia about the Bush versus Gore, what he said is the Supreme Court would never have intervened but for the fact that the Florida Supreme Court, which was so heavily Democratic, intervened and ruled in favor of Gore. So the Supreme Court had no choice but to come in, and then they ruled in favor of Bush, but not their finest hour. I wrote a whole book about it called Supreme Injustice, criticizing the Supreme Court for its, what I believe, partisan decision.